So let's talk about pollinators. If we want pollinators in our yard, we need to give them the habitat they need. Texas is host to over 800 species of native bees, plus a whole lot of Italian honeybees running around, and over 450 species of butterflies. And if you want these in your yard, then this is how we're going to go about getting you there. All these pictures I took in my yard. This particular slide, you'll see as we go along. So what do they need? Native bees build their nest underground, so they need access to bare soil. So all that mulch that we keep telling you to put out, that's important. But this time of year, it's time to find some place in your yard or somewhere on your property where you can give them just some bare soil so they can dig in. At the same time, they also need leaf litter. They need a place to get out of the rain and the wind, just like we do. And hollow stems are very important because in the winter, native bees lay their eggs in those, and they stuff it full of mud and babies. And if you cut them out too early, we're going to lose those. So I leave my stems up until I can't stand it anymore, which is usually about mid-March when it gets really warm. When that happens, then I could go cut them very gently. I take them, stack them up in the back of the property somewhere and wait. And then early May, I'll go dispose of them. But give the bees a chance to make it through. What else do they need? Well, they need some dead and decaying logs, obviously. They need peace and quiet, like all of us do, and they need water. So if you don't have a natural water source, and I know we don't want to have mosquito breeding grounds, but you can throw a mosquito tablet in and it will not hurt your other pollinators. But these are even better, these little puddlers, because what a great craft to do with your kids. You just paint some rocks, put them in a saucer. This is just a plant saucer with some sand or gravel, and then keep a little bit of water in there, and the butterflies will just flock over there and light on the little rocks and eat, and it's just fabulous. So the real reason you're here is because you love plants, right? Because we all love plants. So we need to make sure that we have the plants they need for the part of their life cycle that they're in at that moment. Babies, the little caterpillars, obviously need plants that they can eat, and then adults need nectar sources spring, summer, and fall, and they need shelter all year round. So what do we want to plan for? Well, the first thing to think about is, where are you going to have a pollinator garden? Our choice has been we have pollinator plants in all of our beds, but we have about 3 beds that are pretty much dedicated to pollinator plants. So you need to know if your HOA has restrictions. I'm going to help you with that in just a minute. You need to make sure you don't run into any underground utility lines. You can get them marked for free. Just call 811. You need about 100 square feet altogether. So I don't mean like one plant here and one plant there. Somewhere you need to have a space that's about 100 square feet that's full of pollinator plants. You need to have a water source within a hose length, because for the first year, you're going to have to water your plants. After that, you can probably stop, but if you have shrubs or trees, it's a little bit longer. Think about the slope, because you want to be cautious about that. You want the kids to be down there looking at the butterflies and enjoying it, and you don't need them slipping and sliding around. And you need to know what your sun, soil, and water situation is. Now, everybody just saw the Planning Your Pollinator Heaven slide, right?
What's on the screen?
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Where's the sun? Okay, thank you. I just want to double check. Okay, where's the sun and when is it there? The best way to check this is to take a day, set a timer, and just go check it and write it down. Make notes, make a map, however you want to do it. Over time, you might want to do it in different seasons, But if you're trying to start your pollinator garden right this minute, you can do it today or tomorrow. You just want to know, where is the sun really hitting? I was surprised to find that my morning sun lasts a lot longer than I thought it did. You need to know your soil. You want soil with lots of little creatures in it, microbes, earthworms, mitochondria. You've probably got either really clay soil or fairly sandy loam soil, so you're going to need to turn in some organic materials. Yes, we're going to talk about planting native plants, but remember, those native plants grew in our wonderful blackland prairie soil, and that was all carried away by whoever built your house. So you've got to get your soil back in shape for that. You can add fertilizers. You want some nitrogen, but you don't want a whole lot. And just be cautious about here. We need a fairly balanced fertilizer. Okay, where's your water? New plants require water. Your small flowering plants about a year, shrubs and trees 2 years, large shade trees 3. I mean, they're trying to get their roots established, right? So you need a place to do that, a way to do that. You can also hand water with a watering can. You can put in a drip line. You can put in an irrigation system, but just make sure you have a plan for that before you plant them, because you're going to get really tired of hauling very much water very far. It gets heavy fast. Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? So if you want to prepare your site, I have no idea where that came from. There we go. The first step is to get rid of your unwanted vegetation. So you've probably got Bermuda grass or some kind of grass, or maybe just a weed collection. You're going to need to either dig that out, kill it with a herbicide. You can solarize it. You can use the lasagna method. And I put the link, this link right here, in the chat, because for some reason it didn't make it into your handouts. And this is the best YouTube video. It's 3 minutes. It was put together by the guys over at Water University, A&M, quite some time ago, but the Dallas Morning News has kept it on their site. So it'll tell you all about how to do this. I'm not going to go into how to do it. What I did get into your handouts was all this research that OSU has done on various ways of getting rid of turf and Bermuda grass. And Bermuda grass, y'all, the seeds are blowing in the wind, so it's always going to be there, but you can get rid of most of it and get your garden in. Now, here's some design tips that will help you with your HOA. If you make it look like that bed is there on purpose, it's got a border, it's got some kind of structure, you will likely not have any problems. I know in Flower Mound, it's part of our building code or our town requirements that nobody can keep you from planting and maintaining a pollinator garden, but they can keep you from having your lawn look like a big mess. So just a little border, doesn't take much. You can see that's our side yard right there. It's dry laid rock. Yeah, we go out there every year and, put the rocks back, but it looks fine. If you want to be able to see your garden, and you need to plant it where you're going to have light colored blooms in the shade, otherwise you won't be able to see them. Think about your everyday traffic and do make sure you incorporate some maintenance walkways. You don't want to have a reach that's more than 3 feet from a place that you can stand or kneel to do maintenance, because squirrels are going to plant trees for you in your bed, whether you want them there or not. And so you're going to have to get them out. Keep in mind that if you do that, if you've got you want 100 square foot of planting space and you put a 2-foot maintenance walkway down the middle, now your 10 by 10 is 12 by 10. So just keep that in mind. How many plants do you need? You want to think about the space and location more than the specific plant, but plan for the mature size and shape. If it says it's going to get to be 2 feet, believe them and space them 2 feet apart. If it says that they're going to be 18 inches, believe them, okay? In general, plants are going to be about as tall as they are wide. That doesn't apply to coneflowers, but it applies to a lot of things. And you want to imitate Mother Nature. Plant it in clusters of odd numbers, 3, 5, 7, not straight lines. Nature doesn't grow in straight lines. And pick your plants and locate them so that you have similar sun and water requirements together. And while you're at it, you can plan for year-round blooms.
Sure.
Now here, the next 2 slides are just a couple of ideas of ways that you can incorporate a pollinator garden into your yard. This triangular shape is a very basic shape. You can put that in a corner. You can put it anywhere. You put 2 of them together, you've got a semicircle. You put 4 of them together, you've got like a big square or a circle, or just some ideas of different ways that you can incorporate this into your landscape. Once again, let me remind you to allow 3 to 4 years before you have a mature appearance. This was what this bed looked like when it was planted. This is what it looked like 3 years later. Now, this big tree died and they had to take it out, but you can see, that looks pretty sparse when it was planted, and 3 years later, it looks really, really full. So keep that in mind when you plant the plants. I have given up, put more plants in here because I thought it looked too sparse. And then the 2nd or 3rd year, I'm moving those plants out and in many cases losing them. So save yourself some money and time and believe the labels. Now, why do you want to put in native plants? Well, they're already acclimated to our soils and our crazy climates. It is the high and low temperature swings in this area that will kill your plants. It is the way we get our rain. We get half of it in 3 days in the spring and the other half in 3 days in the fall. So we're not getting nice little rains all the time. They will help you reduce water use after you get them established, and they will improve your soil quality because they have these fabulous long roots that will break up the soil. And our native insects can find them. They cannot find a lot of the hybrids that are on the market, and I'll try to point those out as we start looking at specific plants. Okay, where are you going to find these native plants? They're not that hard to find. Many nurseries have them. You have your plant list now in that butterfly garden list. If you take that with you, you should be able to find them at many nurseries. Plant sales, to me, are the best places. This is a picture of the Nipsot plant sale. This is the Master Gardener plant sale. Both of them have a lot of natives in them. And once you get started, you'll make friends and more friends that also grow native plants, and they'll share with you. Now, I really recommend that you go through this list of 10 things to do. Get there early and bring your list, but be flexible, and get advice are the 3 things that are most important. Read the labels and believe them. What's the right size to buy? I will tell you in 3 years, it's going to make very little difference whether you put in a 1-gallon plant or a 4-inch plant. If you've got somebody having a wedding in your backyard this summer, then you need to get big plants and you need to get them in because you need immediate impact. That's going to cost more. It's going to be harder to plant, but you'll get it. If you've got some time, to me, gardening is a long-term thing. It's an act of faith. Every year, you can spend a whole lot less money. You can get them in faster. In 3 years, it all looks the same anyway, but always buy based on the botanical names. Now, how do you decide which plants to buy? You get there and there's all these plants and they're so cool, and I want the ones that are really blooming. No, you don't. You want to make sure you get the healthiest plants. So you see new growth, get down there and look at that plant. Does it have new growth coming on it? Is it getting new leaves? Does it have buds if it's something that's supposed to bloom? Do not hesitate in the middle of the store to pull the plant out of the pot and look at the roots. If it looks like that, put it back in the pot and put it back on the shelf in the very back and pray that nobody buys it. If it looks like this, you can deal with that. But this you don't want to deal with. We're going to talk about what to do about that in a minute when we talk about actually planting. So now we're going to look at actual plants because we talked about what do you want to buy. Now, what is it that you're actually looking for? If you have room for a fairly good sized shrub, American Beautyberry is a fabulous shrub. It is very fountainy. This is a 6-foot fence, so that tells you it's going to be about 3 to 5 feet tall. It's going to get to, this is one plant and it's about 5 to 6 feet wide. But look at these cool berries that it makes in the fall. So you've got some great fall color here. Now this is autumn sage, Salvia greggii, is very, very popular plant. It comes in a jillion different colors. You can plant any of them. I wanted to show you what it looks like in the winter. This is it in the winter. I mean, it's kind of sculptural, you know. Now what's going to happen is in the spring, the new growth is going to start popping out at the bottom and you're going to come cut all this off. But all winter, it looks really pretty. This is the same plant in the spring and summer. And this is one adjacent to it. And then this right here is Henry Duelberg, or Mealy Blue Sage, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Okay, Flamacanthus. Great plant. This is a hummingbird magnet. I took down my hummingbird feeders because they were passing them by to get to the Flamacanthus. Well worth it. It does take every bit of 3 years to establish itself and start being a plant that you're glad you planted. So give it a break, let it get settled, let it get its roots in, and you will be repaid many times over. Fragrant white mist flowers, a gorgeous plant. This was taken by one of our NIPSOT members. Here's her Salvia greggii right here next to it. So kind of gives you an idea how it looks. This is a butterfly magnet here. Texas lantana. Favorite plant for those of us that grew up in Central Texas. Man, this thing loves hot, dry weather. It will bloom from late June until it freezes. It is the last thing to come out in the spring, so do not panic. It is not died. It just hasn't popped out yet. It is also one of the most hybridized plants. So when you see a lantana that's marked annual in a nursery, it is not the native lantana, and you will not get butterflies on it. You just won't. They can't see it because the colors are weird. I love the white and yellow one. I have a white and yellow one, but I've also got 4 of these to kind of balance it out. So look for that. Make sure you go by the lantana or dacoides. Look for that botanical name. Now the Texas sage, I know y'all have seen this. It's all over town. Beautiful plant. Doesn't necessarily bloom when it rains. It just blooms when it wants to, and that just makes it that much more fun. Red yucca. I can't tell you a better plant to put under a window. When you are planting your garden, you need to go inside the house and look out the windows and see what you're going to have. With a red yucca, when it's not blooming, there's nothing blocking the window. You can see out just great. But when it's blooming, it's just popped up right in the middle of the window. You can still see out it because you can see it's not a real thick, heavy bloom, but it's just gorgeous. And the seed pods on it are beautiful too. I'm almost caught up on time now. Motor mouth. Okay, pollinator-friendly vines. We love the vines. Coral honeysuckle is by far my favorite. You can let it go wild like this. This is, again, that 6-foot fence that has the American Beautyberry further down. The hummingbirds and the butterflies both love coral honeysuckle. You can let it go wild. You can keep it under control. You can do all that with your kitchen shears. Very easy to maintain. It takes almost nothing. Purple passion flower, same thing. This one dies to the ground in the winter, but it comes back, and every year it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's two little bees dancing around inside that bloom right there. It's just a great one. Okay, let's talk about some plants that are a little bit cheaper to plant because that's always a good thing, right? And that's the ones that are good to grow from seed. So this American basket flower, it's a beautiful, beautiful little bloom. Um, and even just the buds are quite pretty, quite striking. And then we all love a good field of black-eyed Susans, right? I mean, they're just so pretty. Here's some more that will be in a seed mix. If you buy a seed mix, is you'll get your Plains Coreopsis, you'll get some Drummond phlox, a good assortment of colors and plant types, and you'll get this. This is Indian blanket. I will tell you, I hadn't had good luck trying to grow Indian blankets from plants. But I went out to Justin Seed and I bought their seed mix and I came back here. This is in my utility easement, so it gets no water. I put a little border on it. I put some good soil in there and kind of dug it up a little bit, but not much. And I threw a bunch of their wildflower seed in there. And this is what I got. And of course, now I've made the bed bigger and anyway, but it's still easy. I mean, if they need to come dig up this utility easement for the second time in 38 years that I've lived in this house, all I have to do is pick up these little stones and they can go, and it's not a problem. So this right here is lemon horse mint, which is this plant, and it came in the seed mix with the gaillardia, the Indian blanket, and then this is trailing wine cup that we're going to talk about in a minute. But this is a really good way if you just want to get some fast, this year you want to see a bunch of plants, a bunch of blooms, this will do it. This was the first year after I planted that bed. And it's still, I haven't added any more seed to it. I haven't done anything to it except clean it out at the end of the year. I just pick up all the stones and mow it and then put them back. And it's coming back stronger than ever this year, so that's good. Here's some more that you may get. A standing cypress, if you're really lucky. Beautiful plant, pretty good height on it. And then we have bluebonnets. We all love our bluebonnets, and they make a good border plant. Just remember, they only bloom for about 4 weeks, but they're still a pretty plant even when they quit blooming. And after all, we do live in Texas, right? So, and then there's more perennials. There's wild bergamot. I will tell you, if you have this plant, you will have it everywhere. But it's a really pretty plant. The butterflies and stuff love it. This is ours right here. This is our milkweed, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And then this is a lance leaf coreopsis over here, which is also just a big old bright piece of yellow. All of these need sun, pretty good sun. Although the wild bergamot, the bee balm, from what I can tell, it'll just grow anywhere and everywhere. So be prepared for that. Let's talk about some shade plants. I love these tall Hinkley columbines because they're pretty good size. They're bright yellow. They bloom for a long time, and you can really see them like from the street. You can see them when they're in the shade. I love these little red ones because they're really cute, but they're small. They're a lot smaller than these, and you can only see them if you're up close. So these are in the bed that's close to the door. It's by the sidewalk, close to the door, so I'm going to be seeing them when I'm walking by them. These are out further in the yard because you can see them when you drive up and from anywhere on the property. Okay, Purple coneflower and tall coneflower. These are both great plants. These are sun plants. If you live or can get up to Highland Village at the DoubleTree Ranch Park, the parking lot, the center of it is planted in these tall coneflowers. And that tall is like deep. These are big, flat, big plants. This is the little coneflower a lot of people have. Love it. Butterflies love it. Bees love it. It's just a fun plant. And when it dies back and you just have the seed heads are kind of cool, but they're very prickly. So just keep that in mind. Okay, here's a couple of really good border plants. We're always looking for border plants. Blackfoot daisy is among one of the favorites, and it's one that everybody has killed at least 2 or 3. I've probably killed 50, but that's because they need sun and dry feet. The elevated space, well-drained soil, and lots of sun. This is what this looked like in the middle of the drought last year. The cutleaf daisy, the Engelmann's daisy are the same. You can see that is growing on the soil from between the rocks. It doesn't need much. It's not a big plant, but it's beautiful and it does make a really nice border plant. Also needs sun and dry feet, so you can plant these together. Here's some more good border plants. The 4-nerve daisy, this one's a little bit harder to come by, but I think we're going to have it at the plant sales. It's a really cute little plant, and it's smaller than that Engelmann's daisy. Now here's the fall aster, which is by far my favorite plant, and that's because it blooms in the fall. You know, the monarchs go north in the spring, and we know that when they're coming through here this time of year, they need milkweed. But when they're going back south, they need a nectar source. That is one little monarch that flies from Canada to Mexico. So by the time they get to Texas, they are hungry. They need flowers that are going to be blooming. This is one of them. They take a little bit of attention, but not much. You have a fall aster tip handout. So do what it says and you will love your fall asters. If you don't do that, you will end up with a plant that is 3 feet high and has 5 little blooms on the end, and you will not be happy. Okay, these are not good border plants. Why? Because look, they get tall and they lean over. But they're beautiful plants. So these are the ones you want to put in the middle or up against the fence. The gay feather and goldenrod, I know what you're thinking about goldenrod. That is not what sets off your allergies. But it is beautiful and it gets to be as tall as you'll let it go. And it's just a beautiful big bloom on it. And it will grow in dappled shade. Now, milkweed, that's the hot subject is milkweed. We know that going north, we are the first stop for the monarchs as they're coming north from Mexico headed to Canada. So there's going to be 5 or 6 generations of monarchs from Mexico to Canada, and we're either their first or second stop where there's going to be a new generation born. So it's really, really important in this area that we have lots and lots of good milkweed for them. You have this slide in your handouts. Take it with you when you go milkweed shopping. And I know that the Native Plant Society is going to have milkweed at their sale. I haven't seen the plant list for DCMGA, but I'm sure that they're going to make every effort to. And if you go to the Native Plant Society website, we have a list of all the native plant sales in the area, and I'm sure that most of them will be looking for them. Now, these are just fun, these antelope horns and the green antelope horns, because that's the bloom. I mean, it looks like it's from another planet. Kids love it. The bees love it. The butterflies love it. They will find it fairly quickly. It generally takes about 2 to 3 years after you put in milkweed for the butterflies to realize that it's there. But once they know it's there, they will come back to it every year. So these right here and the next one, the tuberosa. These are the favored milkweeds in this area. Those three. Now you'll see these big, beautiful orange blooms. This is generally called butterfly weed in the store. We're going to talk about that in a minute because it's not the only plant that's sold under that name. It's a very common name. But these are ours. This plant looked like this, and then the monarchs came and laid their eggs, and you can see, I don't know if you can see them, but there's a jillion little babies in there, and there they are. There's the plant, in short order. It was nothing but sticks. It came back immediately, and in a week it was like this again, but we had 12 little chrysalis all the way down our fence. So very fun, had our own third grade science project right in our backyard. Now these three milkweeds are also available in this area. We have one of these. I just love it because it's pink. The bloom on it's pink. It's really pretty. This is the swamp milkweed. So this is the one that's going to need to be near water. You don't plant this with your Blackfoot daisies, right? You plant this with something else that needs to be in wet places. And then these are really cool milkweeds. You might run across them. If you do, great. I just want you to see on this slide, this is what a milkweed pot looks like. It's really a tree pot. It's what the growers grow baby trees in when they first start them because it has room for a big root system. Milkweeds put out an amazing root system and they need this. So if you see it in a little short pot, I would recommend looking more for the big tall pots. Maybe a gallon pot would be okay, but this right here, this pot is 10 inches deep. And to be optimum for planting it, you should see a little bit of root sticking out the hole in the bottom. Not a great deal, but a little bit. Now, here's the big controversy, tropical milkweed. It is a beautiful plant. Look at those blooms, how deep they are. Looks just like this one, sold under the name butterfly weed. It's very commonly available because the other ones are not. So look for it, look out, look for this right here, Cura savica. Cura is not going to cure anything. It's going to cause a problem. Because it grows year round, it doesn't die back. It continues to flower and put on new leaves, and the monarchs will come stay on it and breed and not migrate. They won't go on south. When they come through in the fall, they'll stop to eat on these beautiful flowers, and then they'll lay eggs and stay there. Monarchs just automatically carry this parasite on their bodies. It's a spore. It's just there for adult monarchs. It's not a problem. It's only a problem when the larvae consume them. So if monarchs are staying on the same plant for an extended period and they lay eggs there like they will on this milkweed, the caterpillars, when they're born, will eat the spores from the parasite, and it replicates inside the larva, and then the adults can't get out of the chrysalis. So you can see this poor deformed butterfly is the result of having tropical milkweed that is blooming in the fall. That's it. So all you have to do is avoid planting it. But if you have it and you love it, cut it back at the end of August so that it's not blooming when the butterflies are coming through. That's it. That's all you have to do. Just cut it back at the end of August. It's just like all the other milkweeds, and let it go. Keep these, let those go for the fall. It'll come back in the spring again, and that's fine. They'll, because their bodies are telling them to keep flying north. So they'll come, they'll lay eggs, they'll be fine, then they'll move on. But coming south, their body is telling them, find a place you like and stay there. And if they like it, they'll stay. And then we end up with this. And these butterflies cannot reproduce. The number of monarchs in the hibernation stations in Mexico this year is down 22% from last year. So we've really got to get with it and take good care of them. Okay, here's some good news plants. Greg's Mistflower, it blooms from like midsummer all the way through October or so. So that's a good fall nectar source. These rock penstemon, these are just a ton of fun. All the penstemons are. We didn't discover them until about 4 or 5 years ago, and we just love them. They're just really cute. So I highly recommend them. Pigeonberry, really nice little plant, low to the ground, will grow and flower in the shade. And it makes these little berries that, the wildlife likes in the summer. And then we have the really cute Missouri primrose. I know we're going to have those at the plant sale because they are doing well on my back porch right now. Mealy blue sage, we talked about that a little bit earlier. You saw it in the picture behind my Salvia greggii. This is a great plant. I use it like a shrub because it gets to be about 2.5 feet tall and across. I cut it all the way to the ground in the winter, and then it comes back and it does great. Now, if you cut it back in July, it'll bloom even more in the fall. So you can have this thing blooming from late May until frost. And it also comes in white occasionally. So that's kind of fun too. Then we have scarlet sage and sky blue sage. All the sages, everybody loves the sages. Here's some more good shade plants for you. Prairie spiderwort. There's a lot of spiderworts. This is mine. It's in the shade. Mainly, it doesn't need a lot of water, but it can take a lot of water. And so, because I have hanging baskets above it, it gets all the water it needs. It gets more than it needs, but it's very happy. Turk's cap, this is a great plant. Hummingbirds love it. It will get out of control if you don't keep an eye on it, though. So just keep watch out. And then here's some more good border plants for you. Sundrops, also known as Calliophas. You'll hear it often referred to. It may even be labeled Calliophas now. Been in the nursery trade for about 10 or 12 years, I'd say. Prairie verbena. This is the other most hybridized native. So watch out. Look for this. Look for this name. If it's not purple and it's not perennial, it's not native, and the butterflies will not feed on it. So if you love those deep red velvety ones that are annuals, I think they're gorgeous too, but I don't plant them because I don't have room. I want all of this that I can get. So put that in. Trailing wine cup, this is a really fun plant. It will grow up over everything and cover it with these blooms for about 4 to 6 weeks, and then it dies back and you just have this really cool foliage, and you can just, like you can see, that's covering up my red yuccas because they're not doing much yet. So I just, once all this dies back, I just pull it, you just yank on it, it comes out, throw it on the compost pile, and you have beautiful foliage for the summer, the rest of the summer. White skullcap, another great plant. And then the yellow bells. And I really want you to see the Zexmenia because here's what happens with it. This is in early May. By late May, it's getting a little bit bigger. Look at it in September. This is another good fall bloomer. That's a Salvia greggii next to it. This is the following June, so it's kind of in between there, but see how much bigger that plant is? It just keeps getting bigger and blooming more. It needs sun and dry feet, so yes, it is in the bed with the Blackfoot daisies. Now, when are you going to plant? It's all about getting the root growth because that's the most important thing. Coneflowers, just plain old coneflowers, have a 6-foot root. Those beautiful gay feathers that we looked at, 15 foot. Those roots are the secret to what's keeping them alive in the drought because they can get down there and find the water. They will break up your soil. They will make it better. It's really hard to plant stuff in the summer. So if you go buy plants at the plant sales, take them home and plant them. If you have to summer them over on your patio and just water them and keep an eye on them because they will end up root bound, but we're going to talk about how to deal with that. So here you have this slide in your handouts and you can refer to it as needed. So how are you going to plant? Well, the first thing you want to do is dig an ugly hole. Rough sides, irregular shape, a little bit bigger than the root ball, and you want the hole to be of the same depth as the pot, basically. Now, if your plant gets to be root bound, if you have to summer it over and it gets to looking like this, you can just, I have a steak knife that old steak knife I keep in my garden bag. I just take and shave all this off because those roots are not going to do that plant one bit of good. Just shave them off, then cut through it and fluff them out and plant it. Spread the roots out, set the plant, water and mulch it. If you're planting from seed, do it when the plants in the wild are seeding. If you can tell, if you can't, do it in fall. The main thing is that you have seed to soil contact. If you want to plant a seed mix like the one I showed you in my utility easement, you can do that right now, but you need to be doing it pretty soon. Spread it out and then stomp it like a buffalo because that's the way those seeds, that's the way those plants originally were, right? The buffalo just came through and then just sit back and let them go. Irrigation, you gotta water these plants the first year for everything, 2 years for the shrubs, 3. There's hand watering. There's the parents' favorites and the kids out in the backyard with the sprayer on the hose. Drip irrigation is by far your best plan because you can keep the water where you want it, but you do need to plan. And if you're only going to be watering for 2 years, it's just up to you how you want to do it. And Blake's going to have all kinds of classes all summer about that for you. So what about cutting back? If you cut back in midsummer, most of these plants will bloom again. So there you see, this is the Henry Duelberg, this is the Salvia greggii, and that's that Zixmania. These are all outside the fence. They get no water except for rain. If you're really just cutting for shape, that's pruning. And you want to do that inside out. In the spring, all you have to do is thin and divide plants. Like this is my patio right now. All these plants are going in the plant sales. That's what they look when they're going to come out. And then your bed should look something like that. Mulch it pretty well. Try to get as much weeds out, but be careful because a lot of these plants, it's hard to tell when they're little. In spring and summer, mostly it's just a matter of deadheading it if you don't want the seeds to spread. Cut them back if you want to encourage a second bloom. If you need a more formal aesthetic, you can, but if you're cheap and lazy like me, you just let it go. It looks beautiful. Keep your ground covers and your walkways to the height you want. In late summer, it's time to harvest the seeds. It really helps if you label the plants then too, because then when they die back in the winter, you'll know in the spring what that is. When you harvest the seeds, collect them and label them. Put them in a container and label what it is. There are seed libraries in Denton, Louisville, Carrollton, Pilot Point, I think. A lot of the libraries are starting to have seed libraries too. But most of all, keep your camera ready because, I mean, I just keep my phone in my pocket all the time, and that's how I get these pictures. Okay, in the winter, it's gonna look like this. That's okay. Thin and divide stuff if you want to. Prune your perennials, and that means taking your pruners, not hedge clippers, and pruning out, you know, dead material, material that's, if you have stems that are rubbing each other and stuff like that. And that's that. And we still made it on time almost.